At 6:12 a.m. on a Tuesday, I was positioned at my kitchen dining surface once more with a partially consumed granola bar, a client escalation recorded the dimensions of a pharmacy receipt, and a headset that had permanently bonded with the side of my skull. My third call of the day was with a client in Frankfurt who desired to shout about an SLA violation that hadn't even technically occurred. I neutralized it like always. 10 minutes subsequently, Manila liaison messaged about a backlog of onboarding documents stuck in someone's concept of a digital workflow. I corrected that, too. This was just standard. For 5 years, I was the silent engine maintaining our largest contract from collapsing. I didn't request praise. I didn't manufacture noise. I just delivered. While the remainder of the organization chased agile buzzwords and rearranged deck chairs on the PowerPoint Titanic, I was extinguishing real fires with my bare hands and a wet adhesive note. The founder, back when he actually operated things, once called me his safety net with teeth, stated it in front of the board, too. I laughed then, but I comprehended what he meant. I maintained the whole thing from freefall. If you're nodding along, hey, maybe press that like button or even subscribe. I mean, 95% of you ghosts listen anyway. It really does assist the team behind the curtain keep pushing these narratives out. Alright, enough commercial. Let's return to the wreckage. The thing is, quiet control functions until the volume gets amplified by someone who believes shouting equals strategy. Enter Chase. He materialized like a clown cannon out of an NBA catalog, white teeth, loafers with no socks, a spreadsheet obsession, and the kind of ego that required its own onboarding flow. His dad, founder's old golf companion, pulled strings to secure him the VP of Operations title before he could spell compliance. I encountered him in the corridor on his second day. He was attempting to connect his phone to the office printer. Stated something like, "You must be Susan. I've heard you basically are this account." I smiled. We both knew it wasn't a compliment. At first, he was all charm and awkward fist bumps. But within a month, it started, meetings where I was suddenly uninvited, communications that went out to clients without review, process changes that ignored the realities of the client contract like gravity was optional. He'd CC me on announcements that affected my team, then ghost me when I inquired for clarification. At one point, he called my work legacy operations clutter in a company Slack channel. I wasn't tagged. I was just the punchline. And the worst part, people started listening to him because he had a title and a jawline and a slide deck with the word synergy in 42-point font. He wore confidence like a cologne, and most of the executives, too tired or too distracted, let him spray it everywhere. Meanwhile, I was still executing the job, still managing the client, still taking those early morning crisis calls, staying up late to proof technical documentation, reviewing deliverables line by line so nothing caught fire. My team saw what was transpiring, but we were instructed to align with Chase's vision and lean into the transformation. What transformation? Taking a stable, revenue-generating account and stuffing it into a blender labeled cost optimization. I didn't argue. Not yet. I observed. I documented. And when he called my workflow bloated, I smiled and nodded. Let the boy hang his own tie. But I'll admit, by the third occasion I was cut from a project sync, I felt it, that crawl in your chest that whispers, they don't desire you here anymore. Still, I had leverage. They just didn't know it yet. And Chase, he was about to discover what transpires when you mistake silence for submission. The first occasion Chase rewrote my project schedule without consulting me, I figured it was a rookie error. The second occasion, I thought maybe it was ego. By the third, when he rerouted a $4 million vendor invoice through his companion's agile task force, I realized we weren't dealing with inexperience. We were dealing with entitlement dressed up in a J.Crew blazer. Chase didn't inquire, he declared. One morning, I logged in and discovered a brand new workflow tool live for my team. No notice, no testing, no integration checks. Just a link in Slack with the caption, "Try this out." It's cleaner. Cleaner? It didn't even have document version control. Analysts devoted 3 hours just figuring out how to upload the correct PDFs. We flagged the risks. I flagged the risks repeatedly. I maintained a running list, missing escalation steps, unclear data access permissions, and API integration that had more holes than a golf course. I dispatched it to legal. I copied him. He responded once, "We'll repair it on the fly." Speed over perfection, Susan. Speed over perfection. Great slogan for a pizza establishment. Terrible for a multi-million-dollar service contract with clawback clauses. Then came the email, the one he dispatched department-wide. The subject line was Operational Efficiency Phase 2. And right there in the 4th paragraph was this gem: some legacy processes remain in place due to internal resistance from team members set in their ways. We appreciate your patience as we modernize. Set in their ways. He didn't name me, but come on. I was the only operations lead still remaining from the original contract onboarding. It was a slap across the face delivered with a passive-aggressive adhesive note. One of my junior analysts messaged me right after, "Was that about you?" I didn't answer. Instead, I reviewed the contract, the client contract, because Chase had started manufacturing noise about outsourcing the implementation arm of the project offshore. "Save 30% and look lean for the investors," he stated in one meeting. Never mind that the client's SLA specifically required a US-based escalation lead. Never mind that I was named as the escalation lead. And never mind that we had a clause buried 3 pages deep, added back in 2020 during pandemic chaos, that tied the contract's continuation to named personnel presence. Named personnel presence, me. When I brought it up casually in a leadership sync, Chase waved it off. "We'll get the client to amend that. It's outdated language." I inquired if legal had reviewed his new plan. He smiled and stated, "Legal functions for us. They'll sign off." I could have laughed, but I didn't. I just bookmarked the clause again and dispatched a quiet note to legal with the subject line, "Reminder, 6.4b named personnel and continuity terms." No commentary, just the clause and a timestamp. After that, things moved faster. I was removed from weekly calls with the client. Chase dispatched a customer success manager in my place, a well-meaning but deer-in-headlights type who thought SLA meant service-level agility. The client noticed. Of course they did. "Where's Susan?" they inquired on more than one call. "Oh, she's working on internal optimization," the team replied. I was sitting 3 floors above them, observing, listening, waiting. The pressure started to build, not in outbursts, but in the way every corridor conversation concluded when I walked past, in the polite silences, in the sudden missed invites to meetings I'd led for years. I was being erased one calendar update at a time. But you don't erase someone like me that easily. You don't devote 5 years building a system with your fingerprints on every function just to get ghosted by a nepotism hire with an MBA and a fixation for Trello. So I stayed quiet. Let them build their sand castle. Let them move the pieces. Let them forget the foundation had my name on it, in ink. It was the quarterly all-hands video, on suits, present smiles, fake, you know the kind. The family photo of corporate dysfunction where everyone pretends Chase isn't just the founder's favorite dressed in human form. I was slotted 3rd on the agenda, right after the new marketing lead announced we had a TikTok now. My update was routine, client health, delivery metrics, escalation rates. The identical block of data I delivered every quarter like clockwork. Except this occasion, I wasn't just reporting numerals. I was marking territory, showing that the contract wasn't just on track, it was thriving, and it was executing so under the system I'd built. I had maybe 6 sentences in when it transpired. Chase leaned forward, smiling like he was about to propose to a reality TV judge. "Actually, Susan," he stated, cutting me off mid-slide, "this will be the last occasion you're presenting on this. We're outsourcing this project effective next cycle." And then, just like that, he clicked the mute button. Muted, in front of the founder, the board, the investors, the entire company. I couldn't unmute myself. He disabled my presenter rights. Just a frozen image of me holding a pointer, mouth slightly open mid-statistic. Every fiber of corporate training screamed at me to stay composed. Behind the eyes? Fire. You desire to talk humiliation? Try having your legacy wiped like a dry erase board in front of 137 colleagues and 3 shareholders while your replacement plan is announced like a product launch. You desire to talk fury? Try being silenced in real time about a project your fingerprints are embedded into, while a man who still forwards emails to himself for backup calls it his efficiency win. Here's the thing Chase didn't know: you mute my microphone, I sharpen my aim. I didn't state a word. I didn't flinch. I stared into that camera like it owed me money. And then I closed the laptop. Mid-zoom, mid-smirk, gone. Let him sit in that silence. Let him fumble through the remainder of my report like a drunk reading a treasure map. What most individuals didn't notice, what Chase didn't observe, was the general counsel 2 squares over. He leaned forward right after it transpired, took out a pen, started composing something down. I caught it before I exited. His expression wasn't confusion. It was calculation. Because you don't mute a named individual without consequence, especially not when her name is on the clause that protects the company's biggest revenue stream. I didn't go residence that night. I went to my old folder labeled continuity. I opened the contract, the real one, the one I helped draft during the chaos of 2020, the one that stated in very plain legalese that if I resigned voluntarily, the client could walk. No fees, no arbitration, no Clause 22 delays. I was the linchpin. And now the whole company had observed Chase announce my irrelevance, on the record, with witnesses, under a Zoom license that logs everything. So I started planning, not for revenge, for release. It was April 2020. World was duct taped together with sourdough starters and toilet paper memes. Our biggest client was threatening to pull out of the deal unless we locked down a dedicated escalation lead. I remember sitting in my spare bedroom, which had become my war room, on a call with their head of risk management, a woman named Tanya, who didn't suffer fools or buffer lag. Her exact words: "We need continuity, Susan, not just in title, in person. You keep this thing alive. If you depart, we depart." At the occasion, I was too buried in deadlines to realize how rare that sentence was. I looped in legal. We drafted the clause, standard at first, dedicated escalation resource, subject to mutual agreement, blah blah blah. Then Tanya dispatched back her red line. She added 3 words, specifically Susan Reynolds. Our general counsel raised an eyebrow. You certain about this? Tying it to a person, not a position? I didn't blink. Your organization sells stability. She's stability. So we executed it. Section 6.4b, Continuity of Named Personnel. It wasn't just ceremonial. It wasn't HR fluff. The clause granted the client the unilateral right to terminate the contract penalty-free if I resigned. Not fired, resigned. I hadn't thought about that clause in years. It was one of 1,000 fireproofing measures we'd layered into the contract when the world was on fire. Chase? He'd never read the original version. He'd observed the sanitized summaries, the ones that manufactured it all sound so plug and play. After the Zoom mute heard around the world, I pulled up the contract again, my version, not the one in the shared drive that had been cleaned up by his administrative assistant, the real one. There it was. Page 47, paragraph 2, if Susan Reynolds, the named escalation officer, voluntarily resigns her employment, client reserves the right to terminate this agreement immediately without further obligation, notice, or financial penalty. You ever read a sentence that manufactures your blood go cold and then warm again? I stared at those words for an extended period. Then I took a screenshot. I saved a PDF copy. I emailed both to myself. Subject line, 6.4b Insurance. Then, without a word, I opened the secure legal repository we all had access to, the CYA folder we jokingly called it. I uploaded the full, unedited contract. Added one note in the metadata, original version. Executed April 2020. I didn't dispatch an alert. I didn't forward it with passive-aggressive commentary. I just manufactured certain it was there, time-stamped, quietly breathing in the corner of the corporate server, waiting. The subsequent morning, I walked into the office with 2 coffees, one for me, one for no one in particular. Smiled at the receptionist, chatted with the facilities guy about the broken elevator, played the part. But something had shifted. Because knowledge is one thing. Leverage is another. And I now had both, in writing, on record. And Chase? He had a mute button and a god complex. Let's observe which one holds up in court. HR called me in 2 days after the Zoom ambush, voice trembling like they'd drawn the short straw in a hostage negotiation. I walked in, iced coffee in hand, and sat down like I had nothing better to execute, because technically, I didn't. Chase had already gutted half my responsibilities. The HR representative, Dana, opened with the corporate soft shoe. Hey Susan, just desired to circle back on Tuesday's call. I believe there may have been a bit of miscommunication. I let the silence stretch until she got uncomfortable. She attempted again. Chase's announcement, he didn't mean it personally. You know, he's new to the culture here, still discovering his rhythm. I blinked. He muted me in front of the board, Dana. She granted me that sympathetic HR smile, the kind that states, please don't sue us, just internalize this emotional abuse like a team player. Then she offered the olive branch. Maybe we could frame this transition as a strategic pivot. We'd love to maintain you involved during the handoff. I sipped my coffee. Am I being let go? Her mouth opened, then closed. Oh no, of course not. You're still employed. We value you. Translation, we're hoping you won't manufacture this ugly. I stood up. Then we're executed here. Outside the glass box of HR appeasement, my team was unraveling. Jake, my senior analyst, caught me near the elevators. Susan, individuals are freaking out. They heard about the clause. Is it true? I paused. What did you hear? That the client can walk, no penalties, if you quit. I didn't confirm or deny, just informed him to maintain his head down and not forward anything to his personal email. Let's not grant them an excuse to pull security audits, I stated. Then came the message. Junior legal, smart, nervous, probably still compensating off law school, cornered me in the corridor like he'd stumbled onto an HR crime scene, his voice low, eyes darting. Is it true? He inquired. Section 6.4b, that we lose the contract if you depart. I didn't break stride. You should check the signature page. He executed. Within hours, the legal shared folder was blinking with views like a Reddit thread gone viral. The timestamp on my upload was there, crystal clear, executed, still valid, still binding. The clock was ticking now. Individuals were whispering. The client had gone suspiciously quiet. And Chase? He was posting motivational quotes on Slack like he just read his first Gary V blog post. So I got to work, final preparation, no dramatics. I cleared my desk, not in a rage, but with the quiet efficiency of someone boxing up the last pieces of an era. A stress ball, a photo of my niece, my favorite mug that stated Queen of Ops in chipped gold letters. I wiped down my keyboard, deleted my browser cache, and left the desk pristine. Let them wonder if I just stepped out for lunch. Then I opened Zoom, not for a call, for the settings. I uploaded a new virtual background. Simple white text on a black field, nothing fancy, effective. Effective 9:01 a.m. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to post an essay on LinkedIn. I just needed to show up one last occasion. Let them observe it with their own eyes. Let the attorney lean forward. Let the founder's stomach descend. The fuse was lit. And I was already walking away from the building. The subsequent all-hands was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. Could sense the digital tension humming through the meeting link before anyone even spoke. Cameras flickered on like stage illuminations, board members, department heads, a few brave souls from client success pretending they hadn't heard the rumors swirling all week. I logged in at 8:59 and waited, camera off, microphone muted, and my resignation letter folded neatly beside me. At 9 a.m., Chase opened the show. "Morning team," he chirped, eyes too bright, suit too crisp. Excited to share some progress on our lean operations initiative. We're already observing results from the new offshore strategy, lower overhead, tighter deliverables, and way more scalability. I observed his reflection in his own monitor, the way his eyes darted as he read from a script disguised as spontaneity. He was about to launch into a slide deck full of bullet points about synergy and velocity. That's when I turned my camera on. No greeting, no wave, no words, just me staring straight into the lens like I was manufacturing eye contact with every person on that call. Because I was. In my right hand, my employee badge, the identical one I'd swiped every day for 5 years, now dangling like a severed lifeline. In my left, a signed resignation letter held at shoulder height, signature visible, timestamp clear. And behind me, black Zoom background with stark white letters, all caps, effective 9:01 a.m. I didn't blink. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I just let the silence stretch. You could sense it hit the room like a low-pressure system. Someone coughed. Someone else dropped their mug. Chase faltered mid-sentence, eyes darting to the screen where I now took center stage. "Susan," he stated, his voice pinching upward, "we can discuss this offline." I clicked mute, not to cease him, to cease me. I wasn't granting him the satisfaction of turning this into a back and forth. He didn't deserve my words. The attorney was 2 squares over in the gallery view, general counsel, graying beard, always stoic, always detached, until now. His body shifted, leaned forward, squinted at the letter, paused, and then he looked toward the founder's square, which notably had no camera on, just the initials MJ. I observed it all transpire in less than 5 seconds. Chase maintained talking, something about manufacturing space for new leadership structures, like I hadn't just detonated the room, but no one was listening. Slack was already illuminating up in the corner of my screen, private DMs, group chats, a message from one of my analysts, "Did you just quit?" I didn't reply. I just held the frame for 30 more seconds. Let it burn in. Let them sense it. Then, with perfect timing, I clicked end meeting for me. I left them to it, floating in the awkward silence of their own arrogance in a Zoom call where the most important voice had just signed off forever. 9:01 on the dot. The exact moment the clause activated. The moment I logged off, the company chat ignited like someone had tossed a Molotov into Slack. Threads exploded with a velocity I'd never observed. Did she really quit? Was that her actual badge? Is the clause real? Panic wrapped in professionalism, emojis desperately attempting to soften the freefall. In one channel, someone dropped a screenshot of my Zoom background. In another, someone posted the link to the legal folder where the full client contract had been quietly sitting, timestamped, untouched until now. The founder, Michael, had been observing the call from his office in Florida, camera off, probably still in golf attire. No one noticed he was on the call until legal stood up, pale, and looked straight at his square. He didn't just execute that, Michael stated, almost to himself. The general counsel, Tom, adjusted his glasses, eyes still locked on where my square had gone dark. Tell me she didn't just quit. No one answered because everyone knew she executed. Tom didn't wait for permission. He left the room mid-sentence, phone already dialing. Legal protocol be damned. This wasn't a drill. By the occasion he reached Tanya, the client's head of risk management, the news had already traveled. I'm calling to clarify Susan Reynolds' employment status, Tom stated, voice clipped, formal. Tanya didn't bother with pleasantries. So she's really gone? Tom hesitated. We're still assessing the situation. We're not, she stated. We're reviewing our options. And without Susan, we have none. And there it was. Years of stability, trust, and escalation reliability boiled into one sentence. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply invoked the clause 6.4b, identical one she'd insisted on during the pandemic, identical one we all dismissed as a comfort clause for a high-strung client. Turns out it wasn't comfort. It was leverage, written, binding, and now activated by my silence. Inside the company, chaos bloomed. Chase had attempted to maintain talking after I logged off, but his confidence was rotting in real time. The board members on the Zoom ceased smiling. One of the investors killed their video abruptly. Another inquired, who's taking over her responsibilities today? Chase blinked. We've got coverage in the offshore pipeline. No, today. The investor repeated. Who owns the relationship right now? No answer. He looked like a man observing the floor fall out from beneath him in slow motion. Meanwhile, I was already back in my apartment, barefoot, observing the precipitation hit the window. I manufactured myself a sandwich, listened to a podcast, let the chaos unfold without me. Serene, unplugged, already out of reach. Because I knew what they didn't yet, you don't recover from nuking your named individual on live video. You don't silence the one person your contract requires to exist. And you certain as hell don't execute it thinking there won't be a price. I devoted so extended pretending I didn't matter, until I ceased pretending I executed. 21 hours and 13 minutes after I held up my resignation letter on Zoom, the client dispatched a formal termination notice. The subject line read, Activation of Clause 6.4b, Immediate Contract Exit. That was it. No negotiation. No frantic calls begging for reconsideration. Just one clean email, cold and legal, confirming that the biggest account in the company, $14 million annually, was now gone. Investor confidence didn't wobble. It collapsed. By midday, 2 board members had canceled their upcoming meetings, citing urgent internal matters. One forwarded a message chain to legal demanding to know what idiot approved this transition without a succession plan. Chase's name was mentioned 5 occasions in the first paragraph alone. In Slack, the leadership channel went radio silent. No gifs, no reaction emojis, just a slow, suffocating hush, the kind of silence you hear in a residence after someone slammed the entrance for the last occasion. Chase? Oh, he attempted. By 2 p.m., he was already working damage control, pitching the loss to remaining clients and staff as a regrettable but ultimately manageable churn event. He even pushed out a company-wide email, poorly formatted, titled "Change Brings Opportunity." It concluded with a quote from some tech blogger, "In chaos, there is opportunity." Unfortunately for him, chaos also leaves merit trails. Because legal wasn't playing along. Tom, the identical general counsel who'd leaned forward during my resignation, was now openly contradicting Chase in investor calls. When inquired if the contract was lost because of my resignation, he didn't hedge. Yes, he stated flatly. Clause 6.4b was triggered. It was valid, binding, and ignored by leadership despite repeated warnings. He didn't mention names. Didn't need to. It wasn't just about the money. It was the optics. The founder's prized account, built on 5 years of sweat, sleep deprivation, and a Rolodex of quiet miracles, had been vaporized by one ill-timed mute button and a son's inflated sense of invincibility. By sunset, industry Twitter had caught wind of the narrative. Someone leaked a vague thread, "VP silences operations lead on live Zoom." 24 hours subsequently, largest client gone. Wonder why? The post had 12,000 likes in 2 hours. I received a text from Clara, one of my old PMs who had left the company 6 months ago. "You nuked them with one gesture." Legendary. Then another from Jake, "They're walking around like it's a crime scene." And another from someone I didn't recognize, Clause 6.4b. Beautifully played. I didn't reply to any of them. I was busy putting together a new onboarding plan for a different client, one that had called me earlier that morning to offer a short-term consulting gig. They'd observed the fallout. They knew the value. They desired the person who understood the system, not the boy who broke it. I wasn't angry anymore. That had drained out days ago. Now there was just that still, glassy sensation of vindication, of knowing you were correct the whole occasion and letting the world catch up on their own. They outsourced my project. But they forgot I was the one thing they couldn't replace. The email leaked 3 days subsequently. Nobody knew who dispatched it. Some state it was an intern in IT. Others swear it was someone from finance who finally had enough. Doesn't matter. The board email hit the wider company like a brick through a glass entrance. Subject line, "You muted the named person." No greeting, no sign-off, just fury in prose. Michael, the founder, was executed pretending. He'd stayed quiet through most of the fallout, hiding behind PR statements and backchannel spin. But now, with the M&A deals circling the drain and investors calling him at all hours, his gloves were off. The email wasn't addressed to Chase. It was about him. We entrusted him with continuity, and instead we received ego. You don't silence the clause mid-call and expect no consequences. You muted the named person. You signed the exit slip with a smirk. By the occasion the company scrambled to contain it, screenshots were already in group chats across the organization. Someone manufactured a meme, Chase's face photoshopped into the "This is fine" dog, surrounded by burning contract folders. By Friday, he was stripped of project oversight, quietly suspended pending internal review, though everyone knew what that meant. His Slack profile disappeared. His parking space was reassigned. The only trace he left was a meeting titled Strategic Synergies that nobody had the heart, or energy, to delete. Meanwhile, legal executed what legal executes when they're tired of being ignored. They confirmed the clause's validity in writing and forwarded it to every active client on the books, for transparency. It was a calculated move, a signal flare to the market that yes, the company had failed, but only because certain individuals forgot how contracts function. They couldn't spin it anymore. They had to own it. The M&A deal? Postponed indefinitely. The buyer desired stability, received a viral Zoom resignation and a cratered retention forecast. The company's valuation dropped by double digits. Recruiting froze. A few key engineers jumped ship. But me? I was already 6 steps ahead. I'd accepted the consulting offer, new office, new badge, new start. Nothing flashy, just 4 walls, a decent chair, and a client who inquired before manufacturing changes. That Tuesday morning, a bouquet materialized, deep crimson roses, simple, elegant. No card, just a single folded note tucked under the ribbon. If you ever desire to return, we'll execute it your way. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just positioned the note in my drawer, next to a copy of the clause they forgot. Funny, I never raised my voice. I just manufactured certain they finally listened. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in consequences. Chase's suspension became a termination, quietly announced in an internal memo buried on a Friday afternoon. No farewell email. No company-wide thank you. Just a name removed from the directory and a LinkedIn profile that suddenly stated seeking new opportunities. The founder, Michael, attempted damage control, public statements about recommitting to operational excellence and learning from missteps. But the stain had set. The M&A deal didn't just postpone, it evaporated. The buyer walked, citing instability in core revenue streams and leadership concerns. The company's valuation continued its descent. Recruiting didn't just freeze, it reversed. 2 senior engineers departed for competitors. The marketing lead who'd announced the TikTok account? Gone within a month. Even Dana from HR started updating her resume. Word travels fast in small industries. Meanwhile, my consulting gig transformed into something more substantial. The client who'd reached out after observing the fallout? They offered me a full-time position, director level, my own team, actual authority to manufacture decisions without someone's golf buddy second-guessing every move. I accepted. Not because I needed vindication, I'd already received that. But because I deserved to function somewhere my expertise was valued, not weaponized. My old team? Most of them reached out privately. Jake landed at a competitor and thanked me for showing him what boundaries looked like. The junior analyst who'd inquired if the email was about me? She quit 2 weeks after I executed, citing toxic leadership. Even Tom, the general counsel, dispatched a private message. You executed what I couldn't, held them accountable. Respect. The clause, Section 6.4b, became something of a legend in operations circles. I heard through the grapevine that it was now being taught in contract law seminars as a case study in personnel continuity provisions. Someone even wrote a LinkedIn article titled The Susan Reynolds Clause, Why Named Personnel Matters. I didn't read it. Didn't need to. The satisfaction wasn't in the attention, it was in the silence that followed. The silence of a company that finally understood the cost of taking quiet competence for granted. The silence of executives who realized too late that not every problem can be solved with a slide deck and a smirk. And Chase? Last I heard, he was working at his dad's firm, some mid-sized consultancy where nepotism could carry him without consequence. No Slack channels to troll. No operations leads to undermine. Just a desk and a title that meant nothing. As for me, I'm executing fine. Better than fine. I've got a team that respects me, a client that values me, and a framed copy of Clause 6.4b hanging in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can execute is know your worth, document everything, and walk away when the table doesn't have space for you. Because they didn't run out of chairs. They just didn't desire me there. And that was their loss, not mine. So here's to the quiet ones, the ones who maintain things running while others take credit. The ones who document, who prepare, who know exactly when to hold their cards and when to play them. You're not invisible. You're indispensable. And the day they forget that? Well, that's the day you remind them. One resignation letter at a time.